but also they're switching the mindset from the 12-step model from you're either sober or you're not to this, what we call the sober curious movement, where it's on that continuum there, sober sometimes to completely sober.
Hi, I'm Diana Clark. This is Conversations with Intent. Today, we're going to be talking to Dr. Jody Adewale about addiction, the sober curious movement, and the hope he sees in the way addiction is treated and will continue to be treated. How did you become Dr. Jody Adewale?
I grew up in a family in East Los Angeles, and my mom had some mental health issues, and I think I naturally gravitated towards psychology. And I remember at USC, my friend told me, hey, you should go check out the Psych 1 class. All the pretty girls are there. Oh. And I went, and I stayed for the psychology. It was
went for the girls, stayed for the psychology. I love that.
The girls, I stayed for the research. But I finished the bachelor's in psychology, then the master's in marriage and family therapy, and then completed my doctorate in clinical psychology in San Diego. So a lot of my history has been working in psychiatric hospitals until 2 years before the pandemic. I started my private practice.
You played football at USC, didn't you? You were one of those football players, big man on campus kind of guys, right?
I would, on the surface, it looks that way. But so I don't know if you know the name Reggie Bush, but my freshman year was with him and another Lindell White, some other great running backs. So from the first week or so, I saw them play and I said, I got to go to class. I got to get my education. So I played, but it wasn't big man on campus. It was like the little guy on campus.
So you got injured in that sport, like almost everybody who does play. I mean, I think that's part of the game, isn't it? Coming back from injury.
A big part of my sort of treatment with patients today is connected to injuries from football. I dislocated my shoulder severely in high school, and I had a torn labrum, and pain pills was the solution at that time. This was 2004, 2003, where pain medication was handed out real.
It was the vital sign, right? Yeah, it was one of the vital signs. What's your pain level? And they prescribed.
Yeah, the faces from, the 10 faces, where are you at? And so I remember getting handed, Vicodins, Oxycontins, like it was nothing. And I thought, oh, a doctor's prescribing it, I might as well take it. Until after football, I realized the pain of the withdrawal was so heavy compared to the pain of the shoulder that I might as well just keep taking the medication. And it took me a while to get off those medications. I had to check into a detox program and then a rehab to get off the medications. And it was a big part of my treatment now is helping people overcome their substance use issues. They might need a severe treatment like I went through, like a drug rehab or detox, or they just might need some adjustments to their relationship with the substance.
I agree. It is on much more of a continuum. We like to think an alcoholic is an alcoholic and a drug addict, quote unquote. I don't use those terms, as a drug addict. Mm-hmm. But in fact, the research is telling us that there is much coping strategies for some kind of pain, right?
There's many ways of managing pain: meditation, yoga. There's other non-addictive medications specifically. There's therapies, physical therapy and psychological therapies that help manage pain a lot. I've seen people use meditation for pain management. I've seen people literally cure some of their ongoing chronic pain from yoga. Not that might not work for every single person, but the medical community and the mental health community and even the laymen are starting to see that using opioids as the first line of defense is probably not the way to go anymore. It sort of should be the last line. But again, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't speak to the treatment with those medications.
So in the height of your dependence on opioids, how much despair did you experience and isolation? I always wonder about that when somebody is deep into addiction, how isolated they feel and how much despair they actually do experience.
Yeah, that is one of the hardest parts. It's so isolating because you are hiding it from everyone. No one knows. And it's just this, I like to equate it to like this relationship you're having with yourself. And you're having this constant battle internally while trying to maintain relationships, while trying to, have a good time at Thanksgiving or Christmas that no one knows. You would have to plan out, well, I had to plan out how many pills I needed for this long of a period so I don't go through withdrawal. And there's times where you ran out of medication and you're at an event and you're experiencing severe withdrawal symptoms, but you have to pretend like you have it together. That's one of the hardest parts about overcoming a substance use disorder. Communicating to people that you care about what you're struggling, not isolating, not hiding it from everyone. The more you hide, the stronger the addiction.
You mentioned going through withdrawal and going through withdrawal alone, 5 days of withdrawal. What does that feel like?
One of the hardest parts about, getting sober, getting off a drug is the withdrawal. It is so painful. You're going through days and days of the worst pain you've ever experienced, and all you have to do is just take a pill and it goes away. Withdrawal, it depends on the substance for different individuals, but for mine, the opioid withdrawal was severe body aches. It felt like the bones wanted to jump outside of my body. You're so exhausted, but you can't sleep at all. For some reason, you can't fall asleep. If you drink water or, take a bite of food, maybe a minute or two, you're pooping that out. Severe stomach cramps, shivers, body shakes. Think about the worst flu you've ever had. Combine it with anxiety, combine it with depression, combine it with you can't sleep. And all of that lasts for about that's just the physical withdrawal. That lasts about 5 days, 5 to 7 days. And then comes the psychological withdrawal. They call it post-acute withdrawal syndrome. And that can last months for some people. So there's physical withdrawal, then psychological. And that's one reason a lot of people stay on the substance, because they just can't deal with the pain of the withdrawal. To be honest with you, there's a lot of things that keep me sober today, but one of those main things is the severe pain of the withdrawal. So if you're a family member or you're supporting a loved one who has a substance use issue, know that many of them want to get off. It's just the pain to go through the getting off the withdrawal process is so severe. And certain things like alcohol, the withdrawal can kill. You can go into cardiac arrest. Same thing with Xanax or benzodiazepines. Heavy users of alcohol and benzodiazepines, the withdrawal can take their life. So it's, again, not a character flaw. It's a medical condition.
Stigma prevents a lot of people from getting at least open enough to allow that community of support. What should we be doing about messaging about substance use disorders at this point, do you think?
And just kind of what you said there, substance use disorders. It used the change in the DSM-5. I'm going to show an image here. This is the sort of manual to diagnose people. It used to be substance dependence or cocaine dependence, and they've changed it to substance use disorder. We've just the change in phrasing, but also for so long, substance use or, alcohol use has been seen as this character flaw or this lack of morality, or something. You're just not strong enough. And phrasing it, we're moving to a direction of phrasing it as a medical condition, as a mental health condition, not a character flaw or a personality quirk. Now many people can go on disability for alcohol use or, substance use. So I do think putting it out there that addiction can happen to anyone. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they say something where addiction attacks people from Park Avenue to Park Bench. No one is immune, and that right substance at that right time, dealing with those right struggles can, hook anyone. So switching away from it to being a character flaw or lack of morality to more of a mental health condition.
Once we get away from the shaming, blaming, judging, isolating, and all of the things we used to do when we were treating substance use disorders, or what we called addicts and alcoholics, we treated them in ways that weren't always kind. And how do we move through? What have you seen the change in the way we treat people, in addition to the change in nomenclature?
I've seen a lot more support in educating other providers, other medical doctors, educating therapists about what addiction looks like and how to help. You have to meet people where they're at. Most people who have a substance use issue, the majority know, okay, this isn't helpful. I need to stop. Just telling them you need to quit. That's not gonna. That's not gonna do.
Even with a finger wag,
Yeah,
even with a full finger wag, it doesn't work. I'm shocked.
That's not gonna do much. They're like the DARE program. I don't know. I'm dating myself. That yeah. Research showed that didn't necessarily work. There were good aspects of it, but educating family members what to look out for, educating the community what treatment programs are out there, educating the community about, what substances do you really need to stay away from, like fentanyl, like opioids, like methamphetamines. So there's a shift in empathy, I would say, for the population who are struggling with a substance use issue, and also knowing that you don't have to do this alone. One of the biggest things that helped me was community. I remember in the detox program, a group, 3 people came in from a 12-step program. They started talking, and just hearing that she struggled with an addiction too, I started to cry. Because it was that moment where like, oh, I'm not alone in this. It's other people have this too. So the worst thing someone can do who's struggling with an addiction is to isolate and hide it from everyone else. Connecting, reaching out for that support is really important.
And in our culture, it's really brave to reach out. It is. When somebody says to me, I need to go to treatment, I am in awe of the bravery and courage that acknowledgement, because what our culture tends to teach is if you were strong enough, wise enough, smart enough, you'd be able to do this without getting hooked. You'd be able to drink without it being a problem. You'd be able to take payment. We shame people that way. So to own up, hey, here I am, is brave.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the tenets of psychotherapy, at least, is teaching people how to reach out for help. Knowing when you can't do it on your own. Because I went through withdrawal on my own, trying to get off these meds about 5 times I can remember. Just sitting on the couch, going through withdrawal for 5 days, and then I relapsed. And it was a point where I was just walking the dog and said, I need to reach out for some help. And I called a detox program. They're like, yeah, we'll get you in by Wednesday. And that was it. I'm trying to, they call it, don't white knuckle it. White knuckle is you squeeze your fist, your knuckles turn white. Just hold on and try to, reaching out for support is to me one of the first steps. And it doesn't have to be a detox or a drug rehab. It could be that neighbor. It could be a family member. It could be a coworker that you just start the conversation with.
When I first came in the field, and granted I've been in it a long time, there was one treatment, and it was basically 28 days, and it was 12-step peer-driven programming, which for many is a miracle and for many is not. And so I've heard about some other forms of programming. What do you hear these days down there in California?
So there's many faucets. One is the medical side of it. There's all these new medications. An older one's called Antabuse, or I forgot the real name, but it's a medication that helps you with cravings and helps you not, when you drink, you have a negative reaction. There's many medication advances that medical doctors are using to help with the cravings, these psych meds. But also they're switching the mindset from the 12-step model from you're either sober or you're not, to this, what we call the sober curious movement, where it's on that continuum, they're sober sometimes to completely sober. For a lot of people, if they're on this, I have to be sober 100% of the time, and they have that small relapse, it opens the door for, I'm a failure, I messed it all up, I might as well just keep going. Yeah, the sober curious movement looks at you can have a different relationship with the substance. You can, take breaks. You can reduce your amount. You can take an inventory of how much you are using the substance. There are some substances where that sober curiosity doesn't necessarily work, like methamphetamines or heroin, or fentanyl. This is more geared to like alcohol, marijuana, even cocaine. But the sober curious movement is really looking at reshaping your relationship with the substance and asking yourself, what is the role of this substance in my life? Is it helping me? Is it helping me serving hold on. Is it serving the function I would like for it to serve? For example, in college, drinking, it served a social function. Now that I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, drinking interferes with my goals of taking care of these kids. So there's a lot of medication advances. There's change in perspective and switching from the all or nothing. But for those who are listening, the traditional 12 steps still beneficial for some people. The inpatient drug rehabs, the outpatient drug rehabs, and the detox programs. But then there's also sort of a lot of online support that people are utilizing now. You can join so many different communities online where it's not the 12-step model, but you connect with other people who are, in a sobriety journey.
So you talk a little bit about the things that motivate people to get sober or to get absent of symptoms, as I hear now. How do we actually help people generate their own motivation? What are the tools you use as a therapist to help elicit motivation to make change?
So I'll point out a few. One, there's a theory, a field in psychology called motivational interviewing, and it looks at the stages of change. You have to meet someone where they're at. The first stage of change is pre-contemplation. I don't have a problem. There's no issue. I don't know why we're talking about it. The second stage is contemplation. There's an issue, but I'm not ready to do anything about it. The third stage is action. I'm getting ready to make this change. I'm reaching out to therapists. I'm starting to implement my plan. The next is maintenance. I'm able to maintain those changes. For a lot of therapists, we have to identify where the person is in that change model. If someone's not thinking they have an issue, they're in pre-contemplation, the motivation is just trying to get them to see it as a problem, to see there's an issue that's present. So a big part of treatment is meeting people where they're at in terms of that change model. And that applies for texting and driving, for sex, for gambling, for shopping too much, for eating. Where am I with the change? But another strategy is looking at the motivation. What is the reason someone wants to change a behavior? You need an internal, intrinsic motivation, something for yourself, but also an extrinsic motivation, something outside of you that's attracting you to this behavior change. It could be to be more focused at work. It could be for taking care of your kids. It could be, to have more energy. Mm-hmm. But we need both. We look at the internal and the external motivators. And one last skill that I like to use is something called the readiness ruler, where we look at how important this change is. 0, not important at all. 10, very important. How important is the change? If it's 8, 9, or 10, then we look at how confident are you in making this change, 0 through 10. And then how ready are you in making this change, 0 to 10. And if the importance is high, but the confidence and the readiness are pretty low, we start looking at the variables or the factors that are impeding on that confidence, to help bring up, that confidence and that readiness. Mm-hmm. So, motivational interviewing is a really good technique for providers who are supporting individuals with substance use issues. And to elaborate on that, a lot of the research has encouraged people who are wanting to change their relationship with a substance to just basically do an experiment. Put on the white lab coat and be the researcher. The experiment might be, instead of drinking every day, let's just drink Wednesday through Sunday. Give yourself 2 days off. Or instead of 5 drinks tonight, drink 2 drinks tonight and see if you can maintain that. If you can set an experiment for yourself and stick with it, that's a good sign. But if you can't, if you keep falling off from your goals or the barriers you set for yourself, then there might be a problem. My sponsor told me once, he said, "Jody, I want you to go to the bar and have 1 drink, and that's it." And I said, "What?" I went to the bar, had the drink, had like 4 more, came back and said, "But I couldn't do it." He said, "Go try again," because I thought I don't have an issue with alcohol.
Oh, you thought you could do this, right?
Go try it. Yeah.
Using your own mirror to hold up, right?
Right. So it's the sober curious movement is big on try to set some limits for yourself. And if you can't stick with them, then more than likely you need a higher level of support.
So I've also noticed over the years a shift in the way families are navigating relationships with people who are struggling. What are you seeing?
Yeah, a big a big support was Al-Anon. Al-Anon, like, it's like kind of like AA, where people who have a family member who has a substance use issue, they go to those meetings and follow a similar 12-step program. But I'm seeing family members not be so ashamed and hide it. A lot of In the past, if a family member had an addiction, that was family business, and that was it. No one talked about it. Everyone just kind of tiptoed around it. And I'm seeing a switch in being willing to open up and get that community support. A lot of families, when they're dealing with a family member who has a substance use issue, it can be hard, and being able to set up the boundary and say no and not give in, it is a switch in perspective, knowing that sometimes your actions can enable the individual. For example, my brother has a substance use issue, and just from what I know, I was able to say that I can do two things for you. I can drive you to rehab, or I can buy you lunch. I can't give you money. I can't give anything else.
So healthy.
I'm seeing families willing to set boundaries quicker in order to help.
I had a friend who had a son who had a heroin addiction, and she said to him in the most poignant way, Jody, she said, when you are active in recovery, whatever that meant in their family, all the gates open. You can be part of our family in real significant ways. I can give you money. I can take you on vacation. I can have you in our home on holidays. When you are active in your addiction, I need to get clearer and close those gates. We can't have you overdosing in the home on Christmas, so we can't have you on the holiday. And she said, I'll meet you for a meal after, much like what you said. I'll take you to rehab and I'll buy you lunch. And those are beautiful things. Or I'll sit next to you and listen.
Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. And part of what you're saying makes me think of, I've come to this conclusion that there's three things that get people sober in this world. And it's not a team of doctors. It's not a team of, therapists. The first thing is a judge. I feel like a judge can get you sober. You go to jail and I got to get sober.
Right.
The second thing is sort of a life-changing event, a severe car accident or something that was you risk death. The third is the most important, a desire to get sober. That's it. If a person says, I am willing to do anything to stop this, use or change my behavior, that is, that I think that's important. And I think families are starting to realize that they've tried so many different things. You can't force someone to get sober. So it's setting up those boundaries, allowing them, unfortunately, to hit that rock bottom so that...
You believe in rock bottom? I don't know if I believe in rock bottom, Jody. I don't. I believe that there needs to be a sufficient enough pain in order to propel you to get help. I believe in that. And maybe that's your definition of rock bottom.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I don't necessarily believe rock bottom either. My rock bottom, what I mean is rock bottom, you can hit rock bottom and then you can get a shovel and keep digging and keep digging. So rock bottom to me is when you decide to put the shovel down. That's right.
That's a great definition.
Yeah, no more shovel, because you can always get lower. I heard of a woman who she was using heroin and she contracted HIV. She thought that was her rock bottom. Then she lost her apartment. She thought that was her rock bottom. Then she had her leg got amputated. She thought that was her rock bottom. Then the second leg got amputated. And then after the second leg was gone with HIV, homeless, still addicted to heroin. So, okay, this is my rock bottom, so-called. So you can always get worse, essentially.
Wow, that's such a sad story. We like to think, and I think families think, I'm going to inflict a little pain, because if they feel the pain of the addiction, they'll stop. And that's not necessarily true. They may just, if families inflict pain, it may propel that isolation. So it's got to be fairly strategic, as you were saying.
Right, that you don't want to inflict that pain on them, but also for the family member, the drug, the alcohol can negatively damage your life as well. Protecting yourself from it is the main goal of those boundaries. If they get better or not, you can't let it destroy your progression, your, kids, your work, etc. Yeah.
I've heard boundaries described in two ways that I have always found helpful. One is the purpose of boundaries is to keep chaos out and love in, because love, I believe, is that force of connection that does the healing, but that's my own little personal thing. And then the second way I've heard boundaries described was boundaries are the door that show you how to get in. They're the door. And I thought, oh, I get it. They're not the wall keeping people out. They're the door. If you want to be in our home on Christmas, then you got to be clean. That's the door in.
Yeah, I love that. I love that explanation. My analogy was healthy boundaries are like you're in one room and I'm in the other room, and there's a wall between us, but there's a door. There's a lock on my side, there's a lock on your side. We can knock, we can leave it open. With family members who have substance use issues, sometimes that the person who's using, they don't want a wall at all. They don't want any door. They want to come in, and helping them is putting up that door and giving them the key to get in. And the key is, change of behavior.
You're so right. I think family members are so terrified that if there is a door between them, that they will lose their loved one. I think a lot of the behavior of bad boundaries is propelled by terror.
Yeah, fear, that worry. A silly example, but my brother in and out of jail multiple times. And I remember 3 times in jail, I would send him care packages, put money on his books, give him a ton of resources while he was there. And when he would get out, he told me, yeah, I was trading that stuff for meth. And I was like, ugh. So the boundary was the next time I went to jail, he didn't get anything.
Visit you. You can't trade meth. Right.
That was it. Yeah, I don't want to soften the time in jail for you anymore. I want you to experience it. And I think that helped.
Yeah. Right. So we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. This has gone so quickly. Tell me, what gives you hope in this field? What gives you hope?
This is going to sound really weird, but whenever I see psychology as like this living thing, and whenever I feel sad or frustrated, the psychologist comes and gives me a hug and it's like, put your head right here, buddy. You're okay. The evolution of mental health from Freud to, your deep unconscious psychoanalysis to, B.F. Skinner focused just on behavior. There's the humanistic approach to mental health, I think, is taken over and is probably going to stay. We're seeing people as human beings. We're seeing them as with desires, with fears, with motivations as well. And I think I hate to say, but social media, you're starting to see a lot more acceptance of seeking mental health support, but also a lot more awareness. A lot of armchair psychologists now, which can be good, which can have some negatives as well. It can have
some value. I think if it increases the conversation, then gets people to experts, I think it's a helpful process. I mean, you didn't talk about it at all. Now you can't turn on a computer without talking about it. So here we are, and here we are talking about it.
Yeah. People and insurance companies are much more liberal with their use of therapy. It used to be used for a lot of them. It was just this many sessions. Now it's unlimited for a lot of insurance companies. It's not just you have to have something wrong with you to go see a therapist. A lot of times I just need some guidance. I need some support. So
they see it as medicine, right?
Yeah. I'm hopeful that it's seen as just similar to going to the gym and having a personal trainer, that it's, having someone to talk to about our thoughts and feelings. But I don't want to make this political or anything, but I'm hopeful for, how do I say, these tough times. I'm hopeful it's going to breed strong people. That's what I'm hopeful for. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of strength come out in many different areas, especially due to the tough times.
Exactly. One of my favorite quotes is by Desmond Tutu, which is, pain and suffering is the anvil on which character is forged and where people learn empathy and compassion. And so I know, it's beautiful, right?
Mhm.
And I think that people who walk those hot coals of substance use disorders and come to a new place, people who experience mental illness and come to some clarity and self-acceptance, people who move through eating disorders, and people who love all of these people struggling, I
Yeah.
see, as growing in compassion, and
Yeah.
it gives me hope.
Yeah. The CDC says 1 in 5 adults will experience a mental health issue in any given year. I
And
like to
then a
think
year, not
in life.
life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In our lifetime, every single one of us will either deal with a mental health issue or be impacted by someone who has a mental health issue. And
100%.
letting go of this idea of mental health being related to character or morality or your weakness. It's we're all subject to struggles, just like our physical bodies. We're all going to deal with some physical health issue. We will all deal with some mental health issue. And it could be something simple as stress, or I'm having a hard time focusing, or I'm sad because I lost a loved one. Those are all mental health related issues.
Yeah. Well, I think your client base is probably very lucky to have you, and I appreciate the time you took today. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Jody Adewale. Thank you for joining us today. I found our conversation with Dr. Adewale riveting, and I hope you did too. If you enjoyed this episode, please like us on your platform of choice. And if you have questions or just wish to connect, you can connect with us at conversations@intentclinical.com.